Hello, everyone. I'm Jonny Mac, and welcome to episode 14 of Center Ice, brought to you by Old City Sports Network and presented by Fanatics. As always, I'm joined tonight by Brent Clemmer. Hey, Brent, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jonny Mac?
Good. How was your week?
It was pretty good, pretty hectic, but we're kicking it in here.
Awesome. And of course, Jesse Bell. How are you, Jesse?
Doing good. Ready to get down. Missed last week. Missed the interview there. I was a little upset about that, but we're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, awesome. Well, welcome everyone, and we got a huge agenda of topics coming on tonight. We're going to start right away with kind of the little bit of breaking news with the Team Canada World Junior team, of course, that's being investigated for some alleged behavior at an event in London, Ontario. So it was a 2018 World Junior team. Kind of the nuts and bolts of what happened. And Brent, I know you know a lot about this as well. So jump in anytime if I'm inaccurate. But there was an allegation made that more than one. The number I've from what I understand is 5 individuals from that team were involved in some sort of a sexual misconduct in London after a Hockey Canada event. I think it was a golf tournament and an auction, and there was some booze involved and whatnot. So what happened is Hockey Canada basically paid the alleged victim off to keep her from pressing charges, and then as time evolved, she decided she wanted to tell the story anyway, and it got messy. So basically the Hockey Canada board had to resign over it. Scott Smith, CEO, has stepped down over it. So it's been in the media here for a while. There's been investigations going on in London, Ontario, with the police, as well as the NHL has been involved. They've come in and done their own investigation. The problem is nobody's really coming out with anything concrete as to what happened. A lot of these players in the, if you bring this up, folks, bring up the 2018 Canada Junior roster. There's a bunch of significant players that are in the NHL now, and some still on their way. Most notably, Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, we know his story: Rookie of the Year, Norris Trophy, and Stanley Cup, and he's 24 years old, 25 years old. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and what happened and came out today basically was Hockey Canada has made an announcement that anybody that was on that roster 2018 is ineligible for any national team programs. So that's going to open up a can of worms. What are your thoughts, Brent? I know you follow this as much as I do, and it's kind of like our soap opera up here in Canada these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously there's a ton going on around it, and it's not something that's going to be kept quiet, even though it was at the start. It's hard to point fingers because we actually don't know anything yet in terms of concrete evidence or anything, and we're not going to speculate on who it was necessarily. Obviously, the whole situation's just totally fucked up from the get-go, and it goes down to the root of what's wrong with hockey. But all in all, the investigation's going to get done. Like you said before the show, I'll let you get into a little bit more. It might be a move to kind of get some of the guys that are clean on the sheet to put some pressure on them to come out and speak on it and say partially who did it, or put pressure on the guys that did do it to, kind of come forward with it, or else it's going to get out in a worse way for them.
Absolutely. And that's kind of my thought. I think with all the different entities that have been investigating this, I'm quite positive that the individuals that are responsible are definitely have been identified at this point. But I think this is a way to, as Brent said, put a little bit of peer pressure, internal pressure on the people that are guilty, to be able to exonerate those that aren't, right. And the agents are very powerful people in the sport. And I can assure you, if there's 3 or 4 agents that get together and they've got guys on that roster that aren't eligible to play on a Team Canada, they're going to put some pressure on the other agent to say, hey, you know what, it's time that we all know what happened. You got to fess up or man up and look after it. And you know what sucks about it, honestly, about the whole thing, and it's sickening that's still happening in this day and age. I know it was 5 years ago, but this day and age is the poor girl that this allegedly happened to. If it happened, she has to see these kind of acts played out in the media for multiple years. I'm quite positive that I read, and Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, that with social media and the internet the way it is, and although there's a publication ban on the young lady's name, I'm quite sure it's been leaked several times through Reddits and different media streams. Am I right on that, Brent?
I think it has, and I'm not even. I do know the name. I'm not gonna say it on stream or anything, but it's been leaked.
That tells you, right? It's it's interesting to talk about this kind of stuff because it's in the news of the sport that we cover, but you always have to feel for the victim and victims in certain cases too. Well, what are your thoughts, Jess?
Well, like I told you before, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with too much of it because down here it really it sounds like it's been and I don't want to say it's not relevant down here, but it hasn't been top news at all since it happened. Yeah. Maybe 1 or 2 flare-ups, and like you had said, there's some players that now it's gonna start catching fire because one of the players are well, obviously both of them are in teams that are in the States. But yeah, I mean, this isn't something that obviously should be happening. You don't want to see it happen ever, but they got to figure this out. This has got to get done and over with here because I mean it was a 2018. We're in 2023 now, and it's kind of can't sweep this one under the rug. The NHL hasn't really been able to sweep too much under the rug lately, anyway. So I mean, this isn't one that's gonna end up that way. But
I think just as a fan and somebody that's involved in the sport a little bit, I think the NHL, the London Police, the Hockey Canada. I think somebody owes everybody here an explanation as to why it's taken this long. I just know that they know, and I don't know what it is that people are afraid of to make this come to a head, but they got to stop being afraid and think do the right thing.
I think that it comes down to the fact that they can't come out and say with concrete authority, with evidence that it was these guys because there's been no court case on it yet. And you can't really throw these guys under the rug and accuse them of something unless you can absolutely prove it. And
it could be an absolute he said, she said. Yep. And that's probably why they haven't poked the bear too much. Because like Brent was saying, I mean, you need some, there's just some pretty substantial allegations there. I mean,
there's video. There's video. There's video. There's messages that were sent after the fact that are I've seen a lot of the transcript, very, very incriminating. Somebody's going to pay for this. There's enough evidence that I don't know whether it's going to be 5, but they've definitely got, I think that they're a little scared because, if you think about this dynamic and you look at it, and we'll move on after this, but these guys are in a predicament, the cops. So now you in a case now in Canada, there's a publication ban basically until it kind of decide, somebody gets arrested back 20 years ago. their picture was in the paper and their name and their age and where they lived. Now it just doesn't happen. There's a lot of liability out there in the media to not report false things like that and out people that are, whether they're part of an investigation or whatever. How do you maybe get a guy that's playing in the National Hockey League for, say, the Nashville Predators? How do you go in and arrest that guy and get him to jail and hope that he gets in front of a judge in the next week to be arraigned or whatever it is on the charge without everybody in the media knowing?
Right.
Immediately. Right? So that's kind of, I think, maybe why it's still being delayed as well, because, there's a lot of liability.
Well, and at the end of the day, there's 22 guys on that roster. And at the end of the day, obviously they're not victims of sexual assault or anything like that, but there's people that aren't involved on that roster that are being victimized by this because it's hanging over their heads until something concrete does come through and they're actually legally and within the league, within Hockey Canada, it said that they're not involved and they are cleared. So, I mean, that's going to be draining, especially when you have a guy like Cale Makar. He's one of the highest profile players in the league. You can't just...
Cale was not in London on the night these allegations occurred. Wasn't even in town. Did not go to the golf event. So why they're not saying at this point everybody except Cale Makar? I'm that's concerning, right? I know for a fact he wasn't in London. That's been confirmed. How do you still have him part of that if it's not a pressure tactic to bully or muscle the perpetrator or perpetrators to coming out and doing it?
Thinking about it too, it's not necessarily just even pressure. It's covering their ass. It's Hockey Canada showing that they're doing something to get the media off of their backs, maybe. Is kind of my thought.
Well, it's a new Hockey Canada regime, right? The board came in and I think it's fantastic. I think it's going to help the game, but it's a different board than the old boys school that's been there for the last 100 years, right? That, swept stuff under the rug and paid off victims and, ran a, borderline criminal organization in some senses, right? So, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. Let's move on here. I want to go right to politics. I want to go right to American politics here. I saw a report, and Jesse, I'm going to go right to you on this one.
Oh, shit.
That President Biden hates the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't believe it at first. So I went right in and watched the video, and he's talking about basically all of the major sports leagues went to the MLB, the NFL, NBA, then went to the NHL. Said I love all those teams except for the Maple Leafs.
I think. I mean, he's old as dirt.
No, I just thought it was crazy.
It's weird, but he's old as dirt. I think whoever his favorite team in the National Hockey League is got pounded by the Leafs in a Stanley Cup final when he was younger, and he just hasn't gotten over it.
Nope.
He remembered that, but he can't remember anything else.
You guys want to know the whole story?
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
I got the whole story. So this conversation happened at Downing Street in Ottawa, which is our parliament. So Biden's on his first trip to Canada, and he's there and he's meeting with the Liberal caucus who basically run the country. And he comes out and says, I hate the Maple Leafs. And the place goes crazy because they're all Ottawa Senators fans.
Yeah.
Right. So part of that is that he's going. And you would have thought a little tongue in cheek. That's, hey, smart guy. He's going to go in there and diss the rival. Perfect. But there's more to it. Then he says, because he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
He's very close to Philly. And his wife is from Philadelphia. So he's a Philadelphia Flyers fan. He's a Flyers fan, and he always has been a Flyers fan, according to what I heard.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So, and he said so Toronto came in, and I don't know whether he probably wasn't at the game, or you'd know that, Jesse, but Toronto came in and he watched the game on TV and beat them 6-2 or 7-2 or something like that earlier in the year, January, December, something like that. So he said his wife was all worked up that Toronto came into Philly and beat them. And he said if he ever cheered for Toronto, he'd have to sleep on the couch. That's coming from your president.
Oh,
and
whoa.
So you know what? The Maple
Jesse's
Leafs are
vote
even
may have
in the
changed.
president of the United States' head.
What's that, Brent?
I said Jesse's political views might have just changed because Biden's a Philadelphia fan.
Yeah, there we go.
He actually, where I live, he lives in the next town over. I live in Delaware.
Okay.
I live in Wilmington. He's right over.
Yeah,
I didn't know he was a Flyers fan.
Yeah. You learn something new every day.
Yeah,
right?
I just thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, you see the one end of it, and you're just like, "What did he just say? What did he just say?" But that's everything.
It makes sense now that I know that it was in Ottawa. I didn't know that before, and that just.
It's also stuff like that. If you think from a political point of view, you got a bunch of people that know a lot, and then you got a bunch of people that don't know anything. And then you got a bunch of people like us that are kind of right in the middle. Not right in the middle, but we may lean a little bit one way or lean a little bit the other way. And when you bring in a little bit of personality, especially to a bunch of guys like us, right? And you're a politician and you start talking and you know, in the language that we know and we understand, hey, could it sway some voters? Stuff like that? Absolutely it could, right? You know, Obama was famous for, you know, hanging out with golfing with Michael Jordan and doing things, you know, showing up at a Bulls game and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously he probably liked sports, but there's got to be a little bit of strategic initiative in there for him too, right?
You would think so.
Yeah. All right. What do we got? Oh, so I wanted to go here. I've only watched Toronto play Boston, but how's Bertuzzi doing? How does Bertuzzi fit in? Have you guys watched any Bruins games?
I've watched a few, not so much the full games, but I've had a period on here and there. And I mean, I think he looks good.
Yeah.
It's obviously an adjustment period going from Detroit to Boston, but I think they're probably pretty happy with what they have in him.
Oh, for sure. What about you, Jess? Have you watched any Bruins games?
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of Bertuzzi, to be honest with you. I was hoping that you know, he would come, our way at one point. He's the type of player that, you know, I would have won on the team, but I think he fits in perfectly with them. Come the end of the year and beginning of next year, you know, see what ends up happening there. But there's a lot of seeing what's going to happen with that roster next year. So whether he's part of it or not, I don't know. They didn't re-sign him or anything, right?
No, they haven't extended him.
No, but he's one of those players that you want to have, right? He's in the mold of you know, maybe a poor man's Kachuk, right? He's going to go out, he's play heavy, get pucks in deep. He's got good hands, and you know, if he can, he'll somebody's going to pay that guy, right? Whether Boston can afford him or not, somebody's going to pay that guy. That guy can play hockey, and I think he'll fit in. I did hear, Jesse, have you heard anything about Dallas? And,
yeah, I'm going back to when I actually got that report. I'm scrolling now. I'm gonna find it. Okay, here. I realized I was like a week behind here. Okay, here we go. We're getting there. I'm completely unprepared here. I don't know where it is. I can't find it. Yeah, Dallas was. I can't even find the thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Dallas, St. Louis, Nashville, every team in the NHL is going to be in on this guy. Do you think he would sign in Boston for less if they won?
No.
I don't think so.
He's at that point of his career where he needs to get paid.
This is his money deal, yeah.
So I don't think he's going to take less necessarily. I don't think like they're not going to have to overpay for him, but I don't think he ends up in Boston, to be honest with you. I just don't think they're going to offer him what other teams are, and this is his money deal, like you said. So he's going to take the money, I think.
Did you hear what Marchand said when they brought in Hathaway and Bertuzzi at the deadline, and Marshy said, that's great. He said, now we have every guy in the league that I hate. So, obviously they're tough guys to play against. And I you know what, I think I've said it all along. I think he goes right back to Detroit.
I agree.
I really do.
Really?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, they have the money to pay him. He liked it in Detroit. He's buddies with Larkin. There's good reason for him to.
Yeah, I think this might have been, hey, coach, or hey, Stevie Y, trade me somewhere and get something for me. And he goes, and you got my word, I'll come back next year at fair market value. And he's the type of kid that would do that, just an honest
take him back.
Potatoes.
So, I mean,
yeah,
they would definitely take him back. So,
for sure.
Any team in the National Hockey League will take him.
Right.
And then speaking of Boston, Taylor Hall's an interesting story here, because if you look at his numbers, I mean, he makes $6 million. He's got 2 more years. He's played 58 games and he's got 36 points. So only plays 11, 19 in per game, but 220 or 217 of that are power play minutes. I don't think he's a $6 million player anymore. I don't think with the numbers that he's giving you, he's never been the most defensive player in the league. Although I'll give him credit, he does play that role a lot better now. He's much better away from the puck than he was ever in Edmonton. He was in Jersey too for a while, wasn't he?
He won
around. Yeah, he won the scoring title, but he would see his goalie in the intermission. He'd have to say, "Hey, I'll see you after the first," when the pucks drop, because he wasn't anywhere near him.
Yeah.
Right. And every team that he was ever on lost, and there's a reason for that. You can get all the goals you want, but if your best players, if your best players even break even, you're going to lose hockey games, right? Your best players have to outplay their best players, and your bottom players have to at least tie their players, and you'll win. If you're getting beat every night because Taylor Hall will score 2 but let in 3, it's pretty easy to coach against, right? So who would take him other than, is Boston really gonna eat some salary on a guy like that or buy him out?
I think I remember, like, even I think it was before Boston got him. He actually said to a reporter that he at one point he sees himself playing for every team in NHL, or have played for every team in NHL. So I mean, I don't know what the deal is with Taylor Hall, really. If that's his trajectory and that's what he wants to do, I kind of back it up. But I don't think he stays with Boston.
The thing is, there's going to be interest in him, and it might not be from a contender necessarily. But when you have a guy that could potentially hop into the scoring race, you're going to get butts and seats for one. And I mean, he's shown that in the right situation, he can do that. He hasn't been given kind of the role to be able to do that in Boston, because they know he's not effective in that role. But somebody will take him. A, he's a big name. B, he's won a scoring title, and I like him to Arizona, to be honest.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I could see him there. He doesn't, and don't take this the wrong way. I know he won a couple of Memorial Cups with Windsor. He doesn't strike me as like the type of kid that plays hard enough that he cares whether he wins or not. Right? He goes and gets his money every week, and drives a nice car and travels to where he wants, and that kind of stuff. And I think that's fine. I mean, but that's partially. I mean, you could say he was unlucky, but I would, like I said, go the other way and say no, he was part of the problem, right? Wherever he went. Now he may succeed with this Boston team in the role that they have for him because he's insulated with such good players and leadership and the whole shebang, right? You're not going to go in and disrupt that locker room, and if you don't play the right way, one of them's going to have you by the throat and say, hey, you know what, you play the right way or we're going to have you out of here. And that's how that room is. And Chara started it, and it's been
Bergeron ever since.
Bergie was a big guy the whole time. Marchand is a bigger leader than most guys. Hate his guts. Real good leader in hockey, and you'd love to have him on your team, right? So that group, you're never going to get a bad apple go in there and ruin that dressing room. They might be getting older, but that's why they're in first place, is because everybody that walks in there plays the game the right way, or they don't last. Taylor Hall, notorious his whole life for just floating and scoring and not giving a shit about his own end, goes there and he's actually he's doing well for them. He's just not a $6 million player, right? What can you get? You can get two rookies that'll come in and provide energy and chip in this kind of goal figures, and you get them on league minimum contracts, right? So tough one, but yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be some interest in him just outside of it. He's just not worth the $6 million. How long when does his deal run to? Next year?
Got two more. No, he's got two more.
So somebody, I think they trade him for basically nothing and send him out with a pick.
You might have to trade a pick with him.
Yeah. You're going to trade a pick out. You might get maybe a fourth liner.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Boston doesn't need to get much. They still they're showing this year that they probably have 2 years left to compete.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to waste $6 million on Taylor Hall. He's been good, but you can find much.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Well, the Boston Bruins are also going to be part of the ESPN documentary that's coming out, and I can't wait for this one. So it's the Vancouver Riots of 2011. I'll kind of give you my take on it. I want to hear both of yours, but I was kind of impartial to the Vancouver Canucks and their fan base my whole life. If Vancouver was playing somebody in the playoffs and all the Canadian teams were out, I might root for them. Impartial. Wasn't like an Ottawa or Montreal that you hate, Boston that you hate. As a Leaf fan, I'd watch their games at night. They had some good teams, with Naslund and Bertuzzi, another Bertuzzi, and that crew that was out there. They were fun to watch. But after the Vancouver Canuck fans behaved the way they did when they lost a real good series, they should have been proud of their team. That team went, and Boston went 7 unbelievable hockey games, right? Wars. One of the best final series in the last 40 years of hockey. And then they go and ruin it and tarnish the effort that their team did by flipping cars and starting fires and looting. It made me ashamed that they were Canadian, honestly, at that point. And ever since, and I like some players, I'm a big Luke Chen fan, and I cannot stand that team. And I cannot stand that fan base. And a little impartial, too, because I have a pretty good relationship with David Boland, who played in Chicago around the same time they were battling back and forth with Vancouver in the playoffs every year. So that's kind of my take. I think it was an embarrassment, classless, right? Really, really put a black mark on the town and the community.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that this documentary is going to come out. It's going to be really, really cool to kind of deep dive into it. I don't. My opinion's pretty well the same on it as yours, but I will say that one of my buddies he lives in Toronto now, but he's actually from Vancouver and he's my age, so he was young when that happened. And they had like in Toronto we have Jurassic Park and Maple Leaf Square and everything goes nuts around playoff time. They had something similar out there where they were viewing the game outside. So they were in the middle of it when the riots started happening. And it was pure insanity from what I've heard. And it got to the point where like him and his father were getting tear gassed just for being there. Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of goes to show you how intense these things were if you weren't around for. So, I mean, that kind of goes to show you how intense these things were. But
yeah, I was. So, what do you think, Jesse? You remember it well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's happened here. I mean, there have been some bad things that have happened in Philly too. But not always.
Come on, not in Philly, not the Philly fan base.
Yeah, but yeah, you don't ever want to see that. But that was a really intense one. Like, I mean, for tear gas to come out like that and for it to be as aggressive as it was, I'm excited for it. Now, it was a horrible thing, but I love documentaries. One. Two, just for something, a deep dive into something like that. I mean, there at one point there were people saying they were just there for the riots. They didn't even care about the anything that had to do with the hockey team or anything like that. And that's a problem. And I don't know. It's unfortunate that shit happens, man.
Before we move on, it was also just it felt random.
Yeah,
it feels weird that was Vancouver.
You know what the big thing for me is. A year before that, the Olympics were there, right? I spent a week in Vancouver at the Olympics. I went to 6 hockey games. Time of my life. You'd go out at night and the town was just absolutely amazing. And we would just kind of go into the square and you'd walk around with a beer. And I went out one night, quick story, and ended up with some people, and then it was Matt Sundin and I in a VIP area of a bar in Vancouver, just, with some other guys and whatnot. And I didn't know Matt's until that night. And I had just a blast. And I can remember we were at one bar and he was like, we got to go to this other one, because he had retired the year before. So he had played in Vancouver and he retired, I think, in 2009 and the Olympics, of course, in 2010. So he goes, oh, we got to go to this bar. And I said, well, where is it? And he goes, like, you got to go through the square and it's just over on the other side. And there's like 10,000 people outside in this square watching big screen TVs of the events and partying. And he goes, let's just go. I go, Matt, you're Matt Sundin. You're 6'4", bald. You're going to walk through there and we're going to just get absolutely mobbed. Let's just, and he was like, no, let's go. So I plowed through this crowd and I had Matt's behind me and we ended up going in and they had a great night. I poured him into a taxi and I got in my own taxi at like 4:00 in the morning and went back to the place where I was staying. So, but that's, and it was just such a fantastic event. And anybody that visited was like, oh my goodness, this is the best Olympics ever. And then, a year later, these guys decide, oh, let's ruin everything that the Olympics did for our city.
I think it was random. It was very random, like Brent said. It came out of no. You would expect that from Philadelphia. You don't expect that from up there.
I would expect it from the Leafs before the Canucks. Like Canucks, just like it's a hockey town, but it's not a hockey town in the way that a lot of cities are. Like, I mean, with the absolute mess of playoffs for Toronto Maple Leafs, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that after a first round loss, to be honest with you.
This year?
Not this year. Yeah, I just mean I wouldn't be shocked.
You know what?
I think fans
I would.
are used to it at this point.
I'm going to tell you I would, and I would have answered that question differently before the Vancouver thing, but everybody's cognizant of that now. Yeah. Right? So you don't want to you're going to get some pressure on you if you decide you're going to be an idiot. And, if Toronto gets knocked out in the first round by Tampa and you want to be an idiot and try to start a riot, there's going to be a lot of guys to shut you down just because it's like, hey, you know what? Vancouver is still, like, they were talking about them on center ice the other night. They're going to be all over it. So for sure. Let's stay out west in Canada.
Speaking
Calgary Flames. Wow. Oh, look, Brandon, I just brought up your your question here. So we're going to talk about the Calgary Flames. Probably take us an hour and 45 minutes to get to the root of the problem. No, just kidding. I'll start with you, Brent, on this one. What do you think is going on out there?
I think it's coaching, to be honest with you. I mean, guys have come out and said they don't want to play there. I mean, long term. So I think that maybe we will even see a coaching change by the end of this week. I wouldn't be surprised to see it, but I think that's kind of the root of their problem. They've lost the room. They've lost pretty well everything to do with the team, and it's just fallen apart from there.
Jesse, what are your thoughts?
Dude, I ride this trade almost every week. I'm talking about this. And Daryl Sutter is just not. He's lost it all. I mean, when you make the trades that you've made, and you get Jonathan Huberdeau, you get Mackenzie Weegar, and it's just not working. I mean, you saw Mackenzie Weegar fighting the other night. I just don't. I don't know. It's got to be him. It has to be. And like Brent had said, in the report was saying that some players had said that they won't be returning next year if Sutter's there. So that kind of tells you that. I don't know about this week. I mean, but like you're definitely going to see a coaching change at some point soon because it's crazy. It's insane how you just can't coach like that anymore. It's just I kind of agree with some of his coaching ways because I like to follow the older way of hockey, but these kids aren't responding to it. You probably have Lucic responding to it, and that's probably it. So. Yeah, it's got to be coaching for me.
I'm gonna agree and I'm gonna disagree. So if it's the coaching, I'm gonna put that on Treliving because if it's the coaching, it's been going on all year. So why in the hell would he keep the guy that's the problem? You think if it just came out in the media a week ago that Kadri doesn't like him, we knew in December that Huberdeau doesn't like him. Because his agent came out and said something. So why don't you fire him in December? That team is a good. It's a good group of players. Okay, I'm going to say it like that.
High off-season expectations for sure.
Absolutely, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to speak devil's advocate on what you guys are saying about the coaching, and maybe it's because I'm an old school guy, and trust me, I know that guys like Sutter and Mike Keenan and Bob Hartley and guys like that they're kind of the old school rough and gruff and come in and drop F-bombs and threaten you and this and that, right? They work with some groups. They do. They don't work with all groups. Sutter's act worked in LA. He won 2 cups, right? Sutter's act worked the last time he was in Calgary. And he was a coach and he was a GM and he had some success, went to the Stanley Cup final. Okay. Sutter had some real good teams in Chicago with Jeremy Roenick and Chris Chelios and Denny Savard and guys like that in the 80s that, early 90s. And he could coach. Mike Keenan, look at the success he's had, right? But you got to have the right group. And in my opinion, and this is coming from an old school guy, I think there's something rotten in that room. I think that, and I don't think it's Kadri. I know people are going to automatically, oh yeah, you don't know. No, I love Kadri. He was a Leaf. I think he was instrumental in Colorado's Cup win last year. I don't think he's going to go in there and disrupt anything. I don't think
he's not a bad locker room guy.
No, he's a good guy.
He hasn't been there long enough either. I mean.
But there's something. No, but there's something in that room that's not right, and something smells for me. And first of all, here's the difference between the 70s and the 80s and now, right? If a player, and I'm not talking. I don't care whether it's the best guy or the worst guy. When Huberdeau's agent Alan Walsh and like him, he tells it like it is. Right? If I'm a team, I'm maybe not screwing with his clients because he's going to call you out, right? So with Huberdeau, if he got so bad that he had to say that, No different than when he called out LA about Fleury. Same thing. And he has no problem saying it. He's a lawyer. He's not going to say something that's not true, right? He's not going to slander somebody. So when Alan Walsh tweets that, that's true. There's no way he's making it up. So he's basically saying that, he calls out Sutter. So if that had happened in the 80s, that player's gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Traded, cut, released, buried in the minors. The conversation would be, you tell your effing agent to and thank him for getting shipped out of here because I'm trading you tonight to a shitty team. And that's how it would have been handled. Now it's, and it makes me wonder why Daryl Sutter hasn't been fired yet. And do they know? And I'm not convinced I'm even talking about Treliving either. I think Treliving may be gone, and I think he'll get scooped up. I think he's a good general manager. I don't think he made bad moves, but this group and this coach won't work together. So why would you wait till now to get rid of him? It makes no sense. It's been trending like this all year.
The beginning of the Sutter thing too it caught fire because it was funny and it was interesting, and it was like, oh, I can't believe you said that. And like I had said on a previous episode here, when he was talking about the rookie that whose family came into town and such like that, and he pulled, who is that? What number is he? Like just stuff like that, dude. Just you don't have to tell me. I know that it's a soft environment out here anymore. That's just how it is. You can't do that to anybody. That's just not how it works. No. Even in the sport of hockey. But like the respect for Sutter that there is astronomical. But it's just it sucks to see that if it does happen that way, that he's going to be gone. But I agree with you, John. I mean, the
MSM media, the mainstream media right now, okay. And the clickbait that's out there on the internet is making me crazy. So if you just read the headlines, it says that Kadri spoke out against Sutter. And it was basically, it didn't say that in the article. It quoted Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts saying he heard or he speculates that Kadri spoke out. Kadri came out and said, I didn't, right? But, I mean, there's moles. There's all, it's a mess. They got the arena deal that they're dealing with. There's a lot of pressure on the city and the province. And, they had a site and now they're not going to go there. And, people have even speculated, is Calgary going to be a team?
And I'm looking at it as if they were not a Canadian franchise. Yeah. They likely would be on their way out.
Yeah.
If Arizona did this, I mean, obviously they have their arena issues and everything, but they're relatively being held up by the fact that they are operating
Gary Bettman
in a decent way. The way Calgary is trending, if they weren't in a big hockey market or a big Canadian market, they'd be fucked.
Oh yeah. I mean, I spent a couple of years in Calgary, and fan base is tremendous. I mean, they love it. It's if you ever walk, I wasn't there during the 2000, was it 4 or 6? I think it was 6. The playoffs when they played Carolina and lost in the final. Or no, Tampa. Was it Tampa that beat them? Yeah, Tampa beat them. Carolina beat Edmonton.
Yeah, Tampa beat them. There was
there was controversy in Game 6 or something like that.
Yeah, with the goal that didn't cross the line or whatever it was. I forget exactly what it was.
But they had the Red Mile, which is 14th Street in Calgary. You come up from the rink and it's kind of the bar district. I think it was 14th. Anyway, or 17th. This whole street, they called it the Sea of Red. And you'd go out there afterwards and people are just walking around with beers, drinking. Everybody's got a Red Flames jersey on. I mean, it was wild. Crazy. Like, it was on the news every night that they had a game. So the fan base is tremendous. They have no problem. There's a lot of money in Calgary too. A lot of oil money. But just this debacle with the rink and, I would hate to see that happen because I know that a lot of people, I got a lot of friends that are like diehard Calgary Flames fans, but it's tough on them right now, I guess. Eh?
Yeah. I mean, if you're a Calgary fan right now, you came into the season thinking that you were a contender potentially, and now you're completely not even going to make the playoffs, more than likely.
I picked them before the season in the Western Final. For the season, I looked at the roster and I said, "Hey, you know what? I've heard Kachuk's, maybe rubs the guys the wrong way. Huberdeau honestly probably needs to play with Barkov because they were so successful together. He could be traded back there. He could be traded back there. You never know. But it hasn't worked out for him out there. He's not a Calgary type of player, in my opinion.
He didn't want to go to Calgary. He had no interest in going to Calgary. I think he said that too.
Yeah, but he signed a long-term deal because he had to. He had to get his money. But now he's not a Calgary type of player, right? What's a Calgary type of player? To me, because I watched them when they won. Yeah, exactly. Doug Gilmour, Theo Fleury.
Someone from out west
or go to a knife fight and just, come out victorious, do what it takes to win. He doesn't strike me as that type and as skilled and offensively as he is. And he plays the game the right way. Don't get me wrong. He, away from the puck, he's very responsible and has been since junior. But I don't think he's just not a Calgary Flame type of, not a high-profile Calgary Flame type of guy.
No, I agree. Calgary kind of needs those guys that they're those Western hockey boys.
I want to know you guys' thoughts on JT Miller. So I have my view. I'm going to start with Jesse on this one. What are your thoughts?
I just want to know what the hell's going on. They signed him for this huge contract, and then now it hasn't even kicked in yet. And now there's so much news about them moving away from him. I just don't. He was a leader in the room, and he was the guy there for and now it's just not. It's the complete opposite. They're trying to move away from him.
I think that they know they don't have something that's going to win at a National Hockey League level in the playoffs, and they're going full rebuild.
Well, that would make sense. But I mean, that's a guy you want, though. I mean, he's an awesome player. I mean,
not for a rebuild though. He doesn't fit their timeline anymore, in my opinion. And that's a big contract.
Who do you get rid of though with that rebuild? I mean, you got some key people there in the NHL. I mean, like Quinn Hughes, Pettersson. I mean,
I think you fire sell everyone except for Quinn Hughes and Pettersson.
Yeah, you want to know my view because it's different.
Okay.
I think he's a phony. I think he's a great player. I think he's wonderful. I think in his contract year last year, he didn't show who he was and how he behaves. And then when he got his money, and they fucked up on that because they should have gave that money to Bo Horvat.
I agree.
Realized it this year. Because Horvat's now outscoring the guy that got 98 last year, right? I think he was a phony. And then the true colors, as soon as he signed his big deal, now you're hearing that he's a disruption in the dressing room. There's video of him yelling at a guy in practice. There's video of him yelling at a guy in the game. When other players are interviewed about JT Miller, they kind of no comment or slough it off. Nobody's ever saying that he's a tremendous leader, That's what you want, somebody to say. We talk. I said that to Billy McDougall last week on the show. I said, "What's the best thing that somebody can say about you as a teammate?" Well, that I was a good teammate. We talked about everybody that I talked to about him said he was just a wonderful teammate, great guy. I would rather somebody say that about me than, "Oh, he was a great goal scorer. He could fight," or I wanted to be a good teammate. This guy's not a good teammate. So he sucked them into this big deal, made them trade the heart and soul, in my opinion, of that team. I would have kept Horvat through that rebuild. Absolutely.
For sure. You build around Horvat, Pettersson, and
they went the wrong way. So I agree. I think he's going to get moved if somebody will take him. And there's guys that'll take him. I mean, he's a good hockey player. I'm not taking anything away, but in my opinion, I think I think he sold them something that I don't think he's delivering on, and that's unfortunate. But that's that's the way I see it.
It's
we all have
it's
our own
amazing how
opinion,
things
right?
come around.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
Vancouver they probably mishandled Bruce Boudreau.
Yeah.
Their management has been kind of a joke recently. So you kind of, what comes around goes around kind of thing for me. I don't really feel bad. It's hard to feel bad for that fan base, as we were talking about, but.
Well, Bruce Boudreau, I think he was, obviously you said it. He was set up to fail going in there. Bruce Boudreau has been a notoriously, he has a very good structured game, and players love to play for him. They really, really like him.
He's a great dude.
They will go out and over the top with effort, and they respect him because he respects them and respects the game. Again, like I said, earlier about a coach, you got to have the right group, right? Bruce has had a tremendous amount of success in the regular season, but not so much in the postseason, right? He coached Washington to a couple of President Cups with Ovi, and they couldn't get him over the hump, right? They had to, bring in a new guy to get that cup. So, yeah, it's tough, but
it's also not only the coaching that got them that cup. It was,
of course,
changing the coaching had very minimal to do with it, other than
absolutely
they needed to move him out.
My point, 100%. They didn't, they just needed a change, and it was for the players more than anything that Bruce was doing wrong. It was, they needed somebody that could maybe have them. Who did coach that cup?
That was, I don't even remember.
Somebody looked that up. It's Washington Capitals Stanley Cup. I can't believe it's like 3 years ago.
That may go to show that it's not the coaching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is that 2018?
I think so.
Yeah, because the Blues won it in 2019.
Coach was Barry Trotz.
Oh yeah. I should have.
Yeah, he won, and then they didn't renew him, and he went to New York. Yeah, now good for Barry Trotz. He, couldn't have happened to a nicer, good Saskatchewan guy. He's got his dream job, man. And finally, David Poile, after 41 years as a general manager in the National Hockey League, retires. And who does he give it to? The guy that was his trusted soldier that, brought that franchise into the prominence that it is. And it's a healthy franchise. Players love to go there. The town is unbelievable. They have no problem attracting free agents. The business side of it's always been run the right way, ethically, with David Poile in charge. And now he gives, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And is Barry Trotz a general manager? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But the difference is, and Glenn Sather said something that was one of the most profound things that I ever heard in an interview. And I think it might have been 94 when the Rangers won. And they said, how have you done this so many times? How have you built these teams of tremendous, success, going in and winning cups in two different places with different groups and tweaking it at the deadline and bringing in the right mix of guys and the right coach? And he said something that was so profound. I've always lived by it. And he said, to be a manager in hockey, be a general manager in hockey, you just need to know who can play. You can hire everything else. You just need to be able to look at a couple of guys, 3 or 4 guys, when they're younger, and say, which one of those guys can play? And those are the guys you invest your resources into. You can hire everything else. You can hire an accountant to do your cap management. You obviously have a scouting staff. You have a paperwork guy. You just basically pull the strings and make the final decision. And if it comes down to this guy or this guy in a draft, you take the right guy. You need to know who can play on the other teams. Nobody knows that better than Barry Trotz. He coached for 20 some odd years in the National Hockey League. He knows all the players. He line matched against them. So I think Barry Trotz is going to continue the legacy that David built, and good on him. Speaking of going into the playoffs here, we were talking, and I load management. So there's a big debate going on, and it happens a lot in basketball.
Too much.
Yeah, too much in basketball. I agree. You've got hockey people that are saying, "Oh, rest your bet." Or fans in fan sites are saying, "Rest rest Matthews or rest Bergeron or rest some of these stars." And I'll give you my opinion first on this one, because I have a problem with it. I have a problem with it because of the fan, right? I might save all my I could have a minimum wage job and be a single dad of a little guy, and all he loves, Mitch Marner, the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? So we save money, and he gets his birthday money, and we pool our money, and we get. I mean, you can't get a nosebleed in Toronto for less than $200, really.
You can get I just bought some standing room tickets for $180.
Yeah. So if you want a seat in the top row of Maple Leaf Gardens or the Scotiabank Center, it's $200, right? So that's a lot of money to people. The economy's not good. Everything's going up except people's wages. So I would be pretty pissed off if I brought my son to that game and Mitch was sitting, because, I think it's an 82 game schedule. Part of being successful is to have the longevity and have the toughness and the mental toughness to get through that schedule. And if you start manipulating it, I got a problem with it. And the big problem is that, if you want to change the minutes around, I'm okay with that. Right? Maybe play your bottom six, top 6 minutes and your top 6, bottom 6 minutes. If the games don't count, obviously they don't, or they don't mean anything at that point, or you wouldn't be sitting your star players. But I think they need to be in the lineup. I think that's over the fan.
Or charge them the same way you would preseason.
Yeah, but when do you cut that off, right? Because
whenever the standings are set, whenever you can't drop, and whenever you can't, if you're no longer contending for home ice or whatever it is, contending for a playoff spot, tickets should not be selling for what they do. Because if you're going to have guys sitting, I'm fine with that. I understand it. I don't want it to be starting 2 weeks ahead of the end of the season. But if there's 3 or 4 games, if there's 3 and 5 nights or 3 and 6 nights, I'm okay with sitting a couple star players, but don't charge them the same way you would for an important regular season game. Charge them as preseason tickets.
I think logistically that would be hard. I like your concept, but I mean, people buy season tickets at the beginning of the year, right?
Exactly. But that's what I mean, though, is that it's hard to say. But if you're going to do that, don't make it harder for the fans to get in games. Like, just don't. It's not.
No, 100%. I'm totally with you. I think and it's hard because you can say, okay, make them play at home, and if they want to sit, go on the road. But then what if Sidney Crosby's coming to town, and the only time he comes to Montreal, Quebec is in March, and that's set. End of March, he's like, oh, I'm going to take a couple games off. And there's a lot of people from Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I am, that go to that game. You watch a Pittsburgh in Montreal game, and watch the signs that say Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia. We drove to Montreal or Ottawa or Toronto to see our hero, Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Right? It's real. It's very disappointing to that fan that shows up and he's not in the lineup. And I can tell you, none of those players are asking for it.
No.
They're not saying, I want to sit. Austin Matthews, and people, oh, he's a prima donna, he does this, and he gets no. That guy wants to play hockey, and he understands the value of the fans, especially in that market. So, yeah, they would say, if they were given the choice, they'd say, yeah, play me 6-8 minutes, play me on the power play, right? Let that little guy come down there and see me up close in the warm up when his dad lets him come down to the glass. That's what it's all about. That's you gotta mix it. There's something to be said about the business and then the operational or the hockey side. But you got to find that common ground. And I don't think it's right. I think it's just, even in basketball, I mean, LeBron,
LeBron
load management
every other game. Like, he hardly plays.
People pay a lot of money. These tickets aren't $5-10.
No, and there was a stat in basketball where Kevin Durant hadn't played against LeBron James since like Christmas Day 2018.
Yeah, because one of them's always out.
And I get in basketball, there's a lot of injuries. You have a lot of guys rolling their ankles and they need some time. But it's not a sport where if you take a day off or 2 days off, you're going to be fixed. You're not going to – it's taking a day or two off in basketball doesn't do what it does in other sports like football, per se. In basketball, you're either on the court or you're not. And the load management isn't so much to prevent lingering injuries and help you heal. It's to stop you from getting injured, period.
It's hard.
It's to get rid of the risk.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, it's actually the visibility of it isn't as bad in basketball as it is in hockey. You know why? Because that guy's still sitting on the sidelines, right?
Yeah, he's right
Johnny
there.
Goes to the game and he can still see LeBron James sitting. He's in a suit, but he's there. Whereas hockey, the guys aren't visible when they're not in the lineup. And it's harder to recognize them even if they're in the lineup with helmets and everybody's got a visor on except about 10 guys now. So, it's one of those things where I don't like it. I get it. But I can tell you right now, if you think sitting one of your best players is going to make them play better in the, maybe the real older vets, like I could see like some of the older guys, Giordano, miss him a couple games, right? But
that's a guy that's played like 25 minutes all year, right? And he's being overworked.
And he's 40.
And he's 40.
What are your thoughts, Jesse?
I'm just letting you guys go. I don't want to interrupt, to be honest with you.
All right, good. We can move on anyway. I got 3 quick topics. Let's do one each on this, okay? And then we can move into the last 3 or 4 things that we got. I'm going to give Peter Laviolette. The talks have quieted down about him signing an extension in Washington. I'm going to throw this one at you, Brent. What do you think is going on there?
I haven't followed it closely, to be honest with you. This one might be a better one for Jesse, to be honest with you. I think he knows a little bit more.
You know it, Jess?
Yeah, a little bit. It's in the same area. There's also the fact that they're actually stating who they would actually be talking to replace them kind of tells me that that's kind of a ship is sailing. And that guy's Jeff Halpern. So I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Laviolette. I think he's a great coach. I think he has the room wherever he is. He's a speech giver. He's a great coach. So I think it's just, in my personal opinion, it's been about Ovechkin for this entire season, what he's doing, and I personally don't see them.
They're sailing off into the sunset.
Yeah, and they're an older team. I mean, they're going to be doing the thing soon here too. So moving on from him, if they're not talking about extending him, they're not going to do it. So
yeah, I agree. And then you just heard, I don't know if you guys read Kuznetsov asked to get out. He wants out.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. So he wants to be traded, and I don't blame him. He's a little bit younger than the other guys. Obviously Ovi and Backstrom, and he wants to win. It's the Ovi show for the next 2 years,
Right.
Yeah.
right? They're going to surround him with a run and gun team. They're not going to win very much, right? They could bring in a real offensive, dynamic coach. Think about some guys that might be out there. I can't think of any offhand, but they might give a guy in the American Hockey League that's going out and playing run and gun and outscoring team 7-6 because they play that style, they'll get there a little quicker, right? Lindy Ruff wants to continue his coaching career. Of course, I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, but not in New Jersey. Anybody hear anything about this?
Yeah, I mean, this one again, Jesse brought it up to me, but there's going to be interest in him. Somebody will.
Yeah.
If he wants to coach,
he'll
he's
go
going to be
somewhere.
able to coach. So that's kind of where my head's on it. I don't think it needs too much analysis, whether it's in New Jersey or not. Lindsey Ruff's still going to be coaching next year.
Yeah, so the article that I wrote on the Old City Sports,
The report itself is just
what's that? I didn't hear you.
I think he's.
I said that the report itself was just saying basically to keep an eye on it.
Okay. LA's going, eh?
Yeah, they're on fire.
I've been saying that I like that team a lot, and I don't know where they are, and I haven't looked at the playoff standings lately, but if they get the right matchup in the first round, they could go deep.
They could. I still think the issue is they're not going to beat Colorado, and I think that's kind of where they live and die. Is if Colorado gets beat, maybe. But I don't think that team's built to beat Colorado, and I don't think there's any chance that they're going to beat Colorado. And the thing is, them heating up and getting a higher playoff seed isn't going to protect them from playing against Colorado.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. But they you never know, right? If Colorado's healthy, man, they're going to be trouble. They're going to be trouble for everybody. I think Edmonton is in trouble out there. I really do.
They're just not built for the playoffs. No. Like the West is not as good as the East. It's not really close, but it's not bad. They're all still pro hockey players, and they're all still good systems in playoffs, and at least in the playoff teams. That Edmonton just doesn't have the skill beyond Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to do anything. And we talked about that before, so we don't need to get into it too heavily, but I just don't see a route for Edmonton to succeed in the playoffs. No,
and it's funny you say that. So in my article this week on the Old City Sports Network, I mentioned who I think would be the top 5 coaches looking for a team, or top 5 teams looking for a coach at the end of the season. I had number 1 Calgary. We talked about number 2. I have St. Louis. I think the expectations were high there. Berube, I think he's just one of those old school. Sometimes he might be tuned out a little bit and not listening or not listened to. So I think, there's going to be a shakeup there possibly. And then I've got 3 and 4, Toronto and Edmonton, if they don't go deep, right? I think both of them are going to have a change. And then the 5th one, I said, it's interesting because he's done a real good job there, I think, is Ricky Bowness in Winnipeg. So Rick's 71 or 72. So he's from here. He's a good Halifax regional guy, Dartmouth. And Rick, he's 71, 72 years old. I think Rick's just gonna unless they win or get real close and he gets the bug to come back, I think Winnipeg's got a real grinding travel schedule. They're in a spot where, they're traveling either to the east or the west. Everything's a couple hours. So he might pack it in. They'll be looking for a coach there.
It's a lot of Canadian teams.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I went through the American ones, and there's a lot of good things happening, even on the bottom end of the league, right? There's some development, and guys are kind of moving forward, and you can make a case for all those, even all those lottery pick teams, the Anaheims and Phillies and San Jose's. There's an argument there that these coaches might be the right ones for this kind of journey to get back into the top of the league. And speaking of the bottom of the league, Bedard, what would be his? I'll ask you both. What would be his pick? And I think we kind of all probably know that. Out of those bottom kind of level teams, what would be his number one pick, and what would be his worst nightmare? Go to you first, Brent. What's his first pick, and what's his absolute, oh my God, and can't hide his disgust when they pull the ping pong ball and put up the sign?
I honestly think Montreal. I think he wants to go to Montreal. And I think that's just coming from the fact that they have a fantastic future already. So if they end up with Bedard, they're going to be a scary team as soon as next year even. So I think that's probably where he would want to go. I don't know what his personal preference is in terms of like fan base and stuff, but I would imagine nobody's going to keel over and die other than me about potentially playing for Montreal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good points. What about you, Jesse?
I
know where you want him.
I don't think it would be good if he came here. I mean, I would love him to come to Philly, but I mean,
I'll give you my last place he wants to go.
Yeah, right.
For Philly,
yeah,
100%. I mean, it's just,
and that's not to shit on Philly. I don't think like they have some decent stuff, but I'm worried about Philly.
I just don't think that it would be ready for him. I mean, Philly's doing Philly's thing. Obviously that's where I would want him to come, but I mean, I don't think it would be where he would pick. I don't think it. I think if he was going to pick somewhere, I would think it would be Toronto or a Canadian team. I don't think it would be a team down here in the States for sure.
Oh, I do. I think if I went through that list,
San Jose.
No, I don't think you'd want to go to San Jose. Small market.
Oh, I know where you're going.
I think Anaheim might be okay. You're playing in LA, right? Hollywood. He's going to resurrect a franchise. Okay. People are hot and cold on him. I watched the young man play 2 or 3 games here in Halifax during the World Juniors. He's the real deal. He's going to change a franchise. So I think actually Philly would be a good place for him because it is a high profile market. It's on the East Coast. There's some history. He could go in there. This kid is going to have Eric Lindros influence, that level. I'm telling you, he's a different player, but that's what you're getting. You're getting a generational hockey player. Now he's not going to run guys over, but he's going to score. The Western Hockey League is big boy hockey. It's heavy, and those guys aren't letting him go by them and score 172 goals or whatever he had. He's getting hit. He's fighting through checks. The defensemen on an average Western Hockey League team are 6'2", 6'3", 210. He's going through. He had 152 points, right? So Philly, I think yes. Montreal, absolutely. I agree with you, Brent. He'd love it there. I think his first choice is Vancouver. He's from there, right? He could, if he's the guy that kind of resurrects that franchise, which also has been in shambles. They're trending up. They got a good coach like Tocchet that a kid like that would love to play for, because Tocchet is going to insulate him and make sure he's not getting the shit kicked out of him, right? So I think Vancouver. Columbus, no, he wouldn't want that, unfortunately. It's just not the market, right? Not going there. Arizona, absolute. He was playing for more people in Pee Wee than can get in the Arizona rink, right? He sold out the Western Hockey League in the last 2 months. It's been crazy, the numbers wherever this kid goes. He was in Saskatoon the other night, and I was at the Memorial Cup final when Nathan McKinnon and the Halifax Mooseheads were at that in Saskatoon. I think it was 2012 or 13, and there was about 12,000 there for the Memorial Cup final. Saskatoon wasn't in it; it was Portland Winterhawks, and Halifax, but 15,000 came and watched a regular season game the other night. And now Saskatoon gets them in the first round, and Saskatoon's a 3 seed, and Regina's a 6. And the way he's playing right now, he could upset them.
And the only player that's done that recently was Connor McDavid. When
his numbers are better. His numbers are better, right? So, he's going to change a franchise. Make no mistake about it. This kid is going to go in, and all of a sudden, a bad team is good, right? So,
I'll take it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But I think Philly would be a real good spot for him.
I actually
good spot for him.
I saw on a tweet from a Barstool guy. I actually shared it on Flyers Alley yesterday, saying that there's actually a good chance. No one knows, but that he could go to Philly, but no one knows.
It's a ping pong ball, right?
Yeah.
It's going to come down to luck. There's 7 shitty teams that have a shot at it.
I mean, we can get into the whole rigging it thing, but if
he goes to Phoenix, there's gonna be problems because Biz said he heard. He said they've already determined it that he'll get the election in Phoenix City Council is 2 weeks after the ping pong ball, not the draft, 2 weeks after the lottery. So if all of a sudden they get him,
there's going to be hell to pay.
The hype is going to be up. They're going to build whatever they want.
Yeah.
Because they know they'll fill it. So, but tremendous hockey player. He's gonna make a bad team good. I don't like his game away from the puck, but it's hard to argue with a guy that's putting up the numbers that he has, right? McDavid's been in the league 8 years. He still can't play without the puck, right? Great with it, but his team's never going to win unless he figures that side of it out. Going to move on. Frozen 4. Going to go down to Jesse's neck of the woods. I saw some highlights. To be honest, I've never really got into the U.S. college sport or the U.S. college game, other than the odd game here and there. A lot of respect for it. That's real heavy hockey. Those kids can play. There's a lot of kids coming out of that level, more now than ever, instead of the major junior route. That would probably be, as everybody knows, I have a young fellow playing. That would be my first choice if he could play some tier 2 junior up here, maybe USHL, and then end up, in an Ivy League school, getting a tremendous education.
And the USHL, that just talking about this, it's incredible hockey. People don't understand how good hockey that is. Like, people forget that it might not be as good as the OHL, but it's right there.
Oh, it's right there. There's a reason why they haven't invited them in for the Memorial Cup.
Yeah,
because that's been talked about for 20 years.
Yeah,
why not have? Why not bring? Yeah, and then you bring 5 teams in. There's a lot of 5-team tournaments, right? That's easy. But so you got number 1 Minnesota with Matthew Nyes, who everybody expects, especially if they win, he'll ink with the Leafs an entry-level contract the night that they hoist the trophy, and then he'll be ready for the playoffs. And they're playing Boston University, who crafty. They're always there. They'll sneak around. They play the right way, so you never know. And then you got Quinnipiac versus Michigan, and Michigan is just loaded with guys. Just crazy. You have Fantilli, who's up, probably going to go 2 right behind Bedard in the draft. He's on the Michigan team. So I am going to try to make a point. I'll at least tape them and watch them. But I'm going to watch some of that this weekend. What do you guys think? Who do you have?
There you go, Penn State.
Who?
Just got to go Penn State.
They're out.
Are they? Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fucked.
Quinnipiac, Michigan, Minnesota, and BU.
BU.
Okay. Jesse.
Me, I assume. Minnesota.
Yeah, I think I got to go there. Minnesota or Michigan, but I want Minnesota.
I want Minnesota because of Nyes. I mean, if he gets eliminated a couple days early, I'm okay with that too. But
I got one more quick topic that's come up, and I think it's showing. If you think about the league in general, and Gary Bettman, and he gets booed wherever he is, and I think he's done. I think he's done a good job. I really do. I think he's grown the game. I think the salary cap was needed. He had the kahunas to get that in there and basically have a labor stalemate for a couple of times during his tenure. But they got the things that they needed to be healthy and sustained long term. I don't like the job he's done with the media in the U.S. I don't like the stubbornness that he's shown with a franchise like Arizona, but for the most part, I think the game's healthy. It says a lot when your big superstar, Connor McDavid, says the morning after watching the World Baseball Classic final, and he's on TV, he's watching it, and I watched it.
I'm a big baseball guy. So
you got an Ohtani pitching to Trout. It doesn't get any bigger than that, right? That would be like Connor McDavid, going on a one-on-one on Cale Makar, and they couldn't because they'd be on the same team, but you know what I'm saying,
that goes to say something too.
Yeah, best on best, right? So anyway, Connor basically called out Gary Bettman. He didn't say, "Oh, Gary Bettman won't let us play." But he implied that, hey, we've been waiting for 10 years. You got to think these kids. So Connor McDavid, what's he, 96, 97, something like that? Matthews is a 97. The Kachuks are all sort of 97, 98 in there. So a lot of the superstars in the game, they grew up with the Olympics, right? They were 4 or 5 years old when Salt Lake happened. And, Mario and Gretzky's running it, and it was ridiculous, right, for Canada. And play the U.S. in the final in the States, and both men's and women. Like that was just like the pinnacle of hockey, right? All the names on that roster. And 4 years later, they go to, where was it, in Italy, and it was awful. They I think they came 5th or something like that. And then so now these kids are 12, 13, when you're just avid watch anything, watching, and then, Vancouver, and then Sochi, and Sydney scoring these big goals. So these guys, that's what's their dream. Of course, to play in the NHL, but to play in the Olympics. And now for the last 2 Olympics, they blamed it on COVID, the last one, but the one before it was nope. They needed a labor deal, and so I think the players have spoken and they want to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And there's no player that's going to say that they don't want to play for their country. That is one of the pinnacles of the sport.
Yeah.
We've seen it forever. And I was a young kid when the Olympics were in Canada and Sidney Crosby scored the goal. That felt 10 times more important than the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it comes down to the fact that, sorry, Jesse, obviously you're American, get over it. But at the end of the day, these guys want to play for their country. We want to watch them play for our country. Think about the viewership at a bare minimum. What can be pulled from that? You have the easiest way to say it and put it is the Stanley Cup final. Outside of actual big time hockey fans, they're not going to watch the Stanley Cup final because they don't give a shit. When you have Canada playing the U.S. in hockey,
everybody gives a shit.
Everybody cares. You don't have to be a fan. I'm not an American. I'm not an American. I'm not Japanese. I watched that World Baseball Classic final
Yep. Me too.
Down to the detail, because it was so. The hype behind it and the excitement of Ohtani playing against Trout, that kind of stuff. That's cool. And people,
the Ryder Cup in golf. I'm not American and I'm not European, but I don't miss a shot because it's the pinnacle. It's the best mano a mano in anything. Love it. What do you think? Jesse?
I'm an absolute slug in this conversation right now. The only sports that I watch are literally hockey and college football. So,
Okay.
no, I think they're important. I don't watch them. I can't say that I do. I don't watch baseball. I'll watch the World Series. I'll watch the Super Bowl. But other than that, you're not gonna really catch me.
That's the American perspective.
I just don't. I just don't. I just don't.
So hey guys, before we wrap up, I've got one. I'm gonna just leave everybody on a note about respecting the country. But before that, I'm gonna turn it over to Jesse to thank some of our sponsors that make this show possible.
Always on the. I totally wasn't. Oh my god! All right, so yeah, make sure you go to the links in the description. I hope they're in the description. We got what'd you say?
They are.
Okay. We got Sterling Pig Brewery. You got the Chamonix Creek Brewing. You got Hangman Brewing. You got Bright Path Brewing. At least now I know that this is going to happen at the end of every episode. I was not prepared for this whatsoever.
Well, we're going to get an actual ad read going, but we just haven't done that yet.
We got Row One. Go to www.row1brand.com. Use promo code OCSN15 for 15% off your site-wide artwork. Use the link in the description for the Fanatics. You click on that link. I believe right now the promo code is 24 ship for free shipping for 24 hours. And then Righteous Felon Jerky. Go to www.righteousfelon.com. Use promo code OCS for 15% off your beef jerky nationwide. And if you spend over $50, you get free shipping. No longer with North Spirits.
Do they ship to Halifax asking for a friend?
Yeah, they go everywhere. Yeah, they go everywhere.
Perfect.
Also, make sure you go check out the other great shows on our network, Old City Sports. You can find everything on the website, all the other shows, lots of great articles. And if you're enjoying this podcast, there's certainly a ton of other content that you'll enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to leave you with one final little anecdote. We were just talking about how everybody just loves it when they play the international tournaments. And, we all basically agreed that this is what we want to do. So this is my story time for the week. And it's a quick one. We've gone late. So I was playing in the British League in the early 90s, and I actually got a gross misconduct before the puck was dropped for the game to start. You know why? I put my helmet on before the last bar of God Save the Queen finished. I put my helmet on and went for a rip. The referee came over, threw me out of the game, and he said I disrespected the Queen by putting my helmet on before the song was over, and I wasn't allowed to play. So that's how,
whole
my
game?
life is. What's that?
You weren't allowed to play the whole game?
No, I got kicked out of the game. A gross misconduct. And then I had to talk to somebody at the league. So when you get a gross misconduct, that's like I think the definition is called the travesty of the game.
Travesty of the game. Yeah, it's when you basically
who's 55 on Montreal? Perzetta? He just rode his stick after a shootout goal. Perzetta rode his stick after he won the shootout against Buffalo. I haven't seen, like, the last guy that I remember doing that was probably Theo Fleury.
Yager did that too, though. The Jaromir Yager. What's his name did a pretty brutal one too in Edmonton. Yakupov.
Yeah.
You remember that, Sally?
He was a great player. Tiger Williams was the originator, and he was the guy that did it often and well. If that guy scored, and guess what? You're like, okay, well, that's Tiger. Let him go do it, because he was a maniac.
Yeah, he was a wild one.
You wouldn't say anything to him.
He was crazier than a 3-peckered billy goat. Anyway, that's it. Till next week.
I gotta use that.
See you next time.